Welcome back to the It's Bigger Than Me podcast. I'm your host, Molly Trotter Gomez. You guys, I'm so excited for you to meet a new friend of mine. And first of all, isn't she just stunning? That was like the first thing that stood out to me when I found her on social media. I was like, that hair, that glow, all the things. And then, of course, you do a little bit deeper dive than what's on the surface. And I could really feel her heart through her content of really embodying faith in her brand, in her movement, what it is that she's doing. And that is exactly what we're going to be diving into today. Because no matter how long maybe you have been incorporating faith in your movement, your mission, whatever you're doing, or maybe this is new to you. I mean, we literally just kind of, chuckled that so many people are still in that space of, can I do that? Is that something that I can actually do? Does it work? Like, how does that look? And I believe that there is such a rise in brands and influencers, coaches, I mean, whatever, people that are in putting themselves out there that are incorporating their faith, showing others that it is possible and it does work. And it actually creates an even deeper connection with people when you find out that that's a commonality. So anyways, everyone, this is Dianne Wilson. I'm so excited for you guys to meet her. Dianne, welcome to the show, and go ahead and dive in a little bit more of your backstory so people that may not know you get a chance to kind of know a little bit more about you.
Well, I love that you started off this by talking about how faith is what connects people, because I remember when we first connected that we both shared stories of breaking the mold and having experiences where we didn't want to settle in our personal and our professional lives just because it was good enough or standard. And for me, I never really felt like I fit in. And once I fully realized that God often calls the outliers to carry out his plan, I learned to see being set apart as not only a good thing, but it being a prerequisite to being impactful in other people's lives. And I think for many entrepreneurs, we know that our unique qualities are part of what leads us to the different paths that lead us to create the unique solutions we bring to the market. And for me, that path was pageantry, because contrary to what most people see on TV, it's not all about beauty. And for me, pageants is what led me to have the faith that through my own lived experiences, I could take feeling like an outlier and not feeling truly seen and use that to help other people who are wrestling with that same struggle internally and find their voice through entrepreneurship. And so in my work building brands, my focus is not just on visuals or messaging, it's on guiding founders to create brands that are rooted in the truth of their own personal experiences, because I think that that's what really connects people. And that's where I believe branding really begins, is in our own personal stories.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. I mean, there's so many out there where you can kind of almost feel if you've been in the space for a while, or maybe you haven't, and you just feel like there's something off about that person. There are so many people trying to be a replica or a duplicate or a copycat of somebody that they saw, and they're like, oh, I like that. And maybe you can get some inspiration from people. And, chances are you probably will. I know I have. I'm like, oh, I like that. How can I have this fit, for me? But exactly copying other people because you're scared to either do the work, or what if people don't like me, or what if they don't resonate? I would love to go down that route, because a lot of fear, hesitation, and, who am I type of thoughts come up for people when it comes to the branding part of themselves, which is why still a lot of people don't do it. And I would love for you to touch on that.
For sure. That really leans into what I'm all about, which is purpose over performance, because my background in pageantry exposed me to what it means to lead with vision over validation. Because in pageants, you're exposed to a variety of different opinions about who you are, what you look like, and whether or not you're educated enough or accomplished enough. And going into that industry, you have to have a strong sense of identity in order to truly, not only, I would say, thrive within the industry, but also I think the best women in the space, they have a strong conviction about who they are. And that conviction is what leads them in the interview room, on stage. And so I think that for founders, it's really important to lean into your own personal convictions and to really lean into who you are first, because that conviction is what precedes validation. That your vision is what's going to not only lead you in the decisions that you make in your business and your brand, but it's also going to be what other people are led by. And so I think that has to come first and foremost. And we all know in business the importance of data. Like, having solid data is what helps us to make informed decisions. But I think that conviction and vision should come even before that, because for most of us, especially when you first start off in business, you don't have the data to go off of to know whether or not like what you're bringing to the marketplace is actually going to work or actually going to serve people. You just have this belief of, I know that I've had these experiences in my life, especially as believers. We've had experiences in our life that we believe that God's brought us through for a reason. And I am a firm believer that for faith-based founders, that those experiences is what is going to help make you the right person for somebody, to help them through their own personal journey and experiences. And so I think that faith is what fuels our success in branding. And that's because your solution to the problem, knowing who your right people are, and what makes you capable as a leader, and your vision for impact and transformation, those all have to be baked into your brand. And so that's why I wanted to talk about in this episode that faith is the foundation of branding. Because as you were saying earlier, there's so many people who get into brand building and they say, okay, well, I'm going to go on Pinterest and look for inspiration for this branding shoot that I want to do, or I'm going to look and see what other successful business owners are doing in the market and see if I can do that too and if it'll work for me. And I think part of that is natural. Like, when you're doing something that's unfamiliar, you look for inspiration. So it's not all bad, but I would say the most sustainable brands, they recognize early on what makes them different, and they lean into that.
Yes.
And so I'm all about helping people that I work with to be able to do just that, which is to lean into what makes them set apart, what makes them different, and to focus on that, going through that personal journey with yourself and that deep introspection of just really understanding yourself as a founder, because really that's going to be what shapes your brand going forward. And I'm also of the belief that your brand only grows as much as you do as the founder.
Oof, gosh, there's so many pieces I want to we got to touch on that part. So first of all, I just love that you need to be led by your vision, not validation. Like, come on. Like, so many people get led by is this resonating? Are people going to do it? Or are they going to, is it hitting? And sometimes it won't. Sometimes you are led, the vision leads you into something where it's not resonating yet. You might be before the time, and then you might be leading a new trend at some point. Like, you might be pioneering something that is not going to resonate with people, but it will resonate with the other ones that are looking for it. And so even though the vision may not make sense to most, you still go for it anyways. But if we wait for the validation, then gosh, like you might be waiting for a long time. And then what are we doing? Like, at that point, we're just people pleasing. We are just waiting for people to accept us when, guess what? Jesus wasn't accepted by most. So it's like they came against him, and he was the ultimate like disruptor. And anyway, so we have to understand that validation, this is a really good kind of reflection point. Anybody that listens to my podcast knows, like, take this one, write it down, reflect on it later. Like, what are you led by? Vision over validation is so key. And then I also love what you ended with was your brand can only grow like how much basically you grow. So if you're not pouring into you, like, how do you expect it to grow, it to expand, and even be able to just have a vision grow? Like, you have a vision and you're supposed to steward it. And I even talk about on prior episodes, there's 4 different stages of stewarding a vision. And so many people are like, okay, I have it. Well, now what, right? Like, maybe they have a glimpse of like what it could look like. So you got the beginning excitement, you got the glimpse of somewhat towards the end. And then it's like, what do you do in the middle? It's stewarding that. And how do we steward our brand really well? We continue to pour into ourselves. We invest in ourselves. We grow our minds. We read. We get around people who are further than us, people who can pour into us. A lot of people get caught up in how can I pour out and impact others? Well, you can't pour out of an empty cup. You absolutely can't. And kind of pivoting this episode just a bit, I would love to kind of even touch on like a personal experience that you've had. Obviously, you've walked through it. You speak with conviction, right? Confidence and conviction. You've walked through this process. Talk about a messy middle part of your branding process for you. Everybody loves, again, the excitement in the beginning. And then when you have something all pretty and it looks good and it's like gaining traction, everybody loves that. But there's the messy middle piece that I always love to touch on for the simple fact of this is where most people are like, oh my gosh, I'm there, or I resonate with that, or I can do it too. What would that messy middle moment, if you can think of one that you would love to share with us today?
Oh, I can think of many. I know we don't have the time for all of that. But I would say my journey through entrepreneurship has been a lot of messy middles, if I'm being transparent with you, because with entrepreneurship, especially for those of us who are visionary types, we want to sample and try everything. And so that's when I first started with entrepreneurship, that's what I did is I tried and sampled everything. I started with having a blog and, then eventually got into podcasting. And then I was like, oh, I don't want to lead or host a podcast. I want to do something else. And then that turned into me. I did a wardrobe styling for a while, which was fun. But through all of those different trial and errors and seeing what worked, what didn't work, what aligned with who I was as a person, what didn't align, I learned that it's so important to just take that time again to focus on what it is that really matters to you. What are you even shooting at? Like, I think that that's the thing is like not thinking about long term what it is that you want to get out of what you're getting into. And for me in business, because I was just so curious about everything, because I'm really passionate about it as a subject, and in general creative type, I didn't take that time to really just like feel things out, I would say. And so the messy middle for me was just going through all those different ventures, trying a bunch of things. And again, I think that there's a good and bad side to everything. The good of that was that I had a lot of experiences. I got to see, like I said, what worked, what didn't work. But, the bad part of it, like I said, was just not taking that time to really reflect, be intentional from the beginning of building my brand. And I think that that's that experience that I had is part of what makes me different as a branding expert. For example, I'm very big on the idea that I don't believe in rebrands. I believe in rebirths, and that it's important for founders to go through, like I said, their own personal transformation before they can truly lead a brand. Because my brand was a reflection of where I was at, just all over the place. And I really wanted to create something that helped those visionary people who, have all these ideas, don't know what to do with it. So they just try everything and try to do it all at once, to be able to come up with a systemized and structured way to approach building their brand so that they can not only explore because it's in their nature, but they could create something that's easy for people to grasp and understand. Because ultimately, building a brand, I think for us, especially as Christians, it has to be beyond us. And that's part of the reason why I love your podcast so much, is because it's not just about us doing what we like or what we enjoy or what's fun. It's about thinking about how can we serve the right people? Who are those right people and what do they need?
Come on.
And so that's really what my messy middle looked like and what led me to my unique process and how I help my clients.
Gosh, there's so much truth in there. And I love it because, we can get caught up in, okay, I'm going to go this route. Like you said, the blog and then the podcast, and then you're trying all these different pieces, because when it comes to the media side of sharing your brand, let's be honest, it is like a scroll that we can roll out for all the options of what we do and what's going to work best for us and what's going to be something that, is sustainable, or eventually do you have to hire a team? Can you do it yourself? What do you get enjoyment out of? All of the above. And you have to try different things. And the misnomer is, okay, I'm going to try this one thing and it's going to be it. And I'm going to do this thing and it's going to take off. And do we all want that? Yes. But it's like less than like a 1% that ever happens for people. And so we get this notion of like, well, it took off for them, must be nice. Well, people may not have known that about your story. If you trying all these things and, it didn't work, but you gained the experience. So it was never a loss. Sure, there could have been some frustration of like, oh, that's not it. Especially for somebody like me, like I hate wasting time. But instead of what I had to get over at one point, I was like, nothing's a waste of time. When it comes to building your business or your brand or the movement, the mission, the God-given dream that he's put on your heart, it's always something that you can take. If God can use anything for his good, you can take something good or something that you can learn in order to, build to the next. I also have to share this that I love your verbiage on it's not a rebrand, it's a rebirth. And in 2025, I said the exact same thing. I rebirthed a consulting agency that I used to have many years ago. But the rebirth thing, it's basically something completely new and something that God had to do a refinement in me over years. And then this rebirth thing, it just has such a powerful message behind it rather than a rebrand of like, oh, here's one thing and it's really the same thing. We're just going to call it something different. But a rebirth, like talk about that. Like just even whether it's the definition or your meaning of a rebirth, because that verbiage right there is so powerful that I feel like people could sit on a little bit longer.
You're just reminding me of why we hit it off so well in the beginning, because it's funny that you've been saying the same thing. And I think it is long overdue, not just in the branding world, but in the business world to talk about like the difference, because like you said, there's so many brands that they come back with a new look, new logo. We saw that happen with Cracker Barrel, new website, new this, new that. And it's like, okay, this is what we're doing now. But in reality, none of that really matters if the person who's leading the brand hasn't gone through their personal transformation. And the reason why I love the term rebirth so much is because it's a reflection of what we've experienced as believers by accepting Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior. We go through a rebirth because he calls us to be born again in order to follow him. And I think that the truth of that, it's so powerful when you think about how it applies in other areas of your life as well, because a lot of things that we experience in life are going to make us feel backed into a corner, right? And what at the end of the day helps us to get out of that is our own internal growth. And what I love again about the gospel is that it calls us as believers to go through that first before we can be able to experience the reward or be able to experience what God has for us, because he knows that he needs us to be in a certain place here in our heart first before we can receive what he has for us. And so every journey, every experience that I've had, that you've had, that people listening have had, it's all been for a purpose to refine us and to mold us into who he's calling us to be. And I think that in branding, the truth is the truth there as well. How many times have we seen people in leadership who, as we look behind the curtain and we see into their personal life, they don't embody or reflect the brand that they've created. Right. Or, even whether it's in business or even in ministry, unfortunately, how many pastors have we seen fall who, had private sin in their life, but publicly they were showing this image of having it all together. I think that over time, truth is revealed about a person and their character. And I think that has to come first in the branding experience, because as you have, a moment of genuine reflection, and again, as a believer, for me, that starts also with going to God about it. With when he corrects your heart posture, he helps you to know where you are realistically, so that you can, take the time to be objective about what it is that you should be focusing on and what you shouldn't be focusing on in the moment. So that's what has inspired, my, again, philosophy and my unique approach to how I help people build brands. Is I don't believe that you are really ever starting over from scratch. I think that really you have to get to the core of what your brand was really all about to begin with.
Yes, that's so good. I love that you brought up the fact that if there is a founder of a brand or a CEO or somebody who's behind something and they have incongruencies, what's always done in the dark will show in the light. And we've seen a lot of that, things being exposed, which is a good thing, because people need to wake up to be like, what am I aligning with? What am I purchasing from? What am I like promoting? Like, what is that? Like, and we do stuff unknowingly, but when we know something and something gets brought into the light, we tend to make different choices because we're like, oh, I didn't know that before. And I talk about this all the time as well, whether it's on the podcast or even with my own clients as well, is the way people buy now is they want transparency. And if they don't get transparency, that deep connection's not there, and they'll just go to somebody else where they're going to get it from. Or maybe you just go something where it's just easier and they don't really even care, right? Like I'm sure if we dug into the deep, dark secrets of Amazon, maybe nobody would purchase from Amazon. Let's be honest. But we all get like 1,000 packages a month from that place. So What, I'll leave that there. But it's really important to know. And so transparency is key. And so many people are still staying in the dark of, I'm not ready. Like, what if they don't accept me? You will have people that don't accept you. You will have people that are like, I don't agree. And it might be people who even are close to you. I've had that for many, many years, and it took me a long time to get over. However, we've heard the phrase for those that are, doing something different. It wasn't a conference call when God gave you the vision, right? Like it was you, it was him, and other people may not get it. Whose voices are you going to listen to? And so being able to have one of the things I started incorporating in my mornings is having basically my own, me and God time. And I turn on my voice memo, and I'm basically having a team meeting between me and God to like start our day of here's what we're going to do, and just allowing him to just kind of flow through me. What do you want me to do? Who do you want me to serve? What direction would you like this day to go? Because I have my objectives, but I want them to align with his. And I think that's the whole point of us coming together talking about this is your brand should embody the same thing, and having that be a common thread and a big thread through your brand, your life, and every part that you are is so key. So as we're wrapping up this today, Dianne, this is so good. There's so much meat that people can chew on. I'm so excited for them to find ways to connect with you, which you can find in the show notes. You have an amazing gift for them where they can click on a link and really kind of take a deeper dive from this. So before we wrap up today, is there anything that you would like to share, just to kind of put a pretty bow on it, if you will?
Absolutely. Well, like you said, I have a gift for your listeners because, like I said earlier, I'm very passionate about this topic of branding and especially the holistic aspects of it, because I think that it's a very underrated aspect of building a brand and a movement, which is really what this whole episode has been about. And so, if you're listening to this podcast and you're called to build something bigger than just you and your business, but you might be somewhere in the messy middle where you're wrestling with putting your vision into the words that inspire people to take action. I created a free resource that will help you to build your faith-driven brand in 30 days. And it walks you through a simple 3-step framework to help you define your movement and communicate your values and start attracting the right people. And you can download it by going to yourbrandmovement.diannewilson.co/guide. And as Molly said, it's in the show notes if you don't want to remember that whole URL. But I really appreciate you, Molly, for bringing me on this podcast. And I really enjoyed the conversation. I think that it will really bless a lot of the people listening today.
I agree. There's always room to be able to talk about your brand. And most people's misnomer again is, I don't want to talk about myself. Well, how can God use you if you don't talk about what he's doing through you and what you stand for and the dreams and the desires and, the missions and movements that he puts on your heart? So many people have been under at some point that lie of the enemy. And people like myself, Dianne is so great. Reach out to her, connect with her, take advantage of that freebie, because really, when you take that deep dive, you're telling yourself and you're telling everything else, the enemy, God included, hey, you know what? I'm going to take a deeper dive because I know I have something inside me that is special and it matters. And you may get pushback and you may see acceleration in other areas. You're going to see an ebb and flow of both. But I hope that this episode blessed you today, because Dianne is just an absolute expert in what it is that she does in this space. That's why I had to have her on. And plus, you could just hear her heart, her passion, everything that she has, because she truly does want to help people. So, Dianne, I appreciate you coming on and just sharing just who you are, raw, vulnerably, and just your love and passion for helping other people just expose and share who they are and what God is doing through them. So thank you so much for your time today.
It's been amazing.
Thank you so much for joining me on the It's Bigger Than Me podcast. If this episode spoke to you, go share it. Someone else needs the breakthrough that you just had. And don't forget to tag me on social media. I would love to reshare what spoke to you the most on this episode. Your story is meant to be mentorship to somebody else. It's meant to move others. Don't keep it quiet. Go lead with it. Until next time, keep showing up and keep sharing what matters.